Okay, so you know how we sometimes get kind of obsessed with this idea of achieving perfection?
Mm.
Well, this excerpt you shared from Osho's Book of Wisdom has really got me thinking about that whole concept.
Yeah, it's definitely a topic that sparks a lot of debate.
Like, what if reaching that end goal,
Mm.
that picture of perfection,
Right.
what if it's not actually the point?
Interesting, right.
Because, I mean, we're constantly told to strive for excellence, to,
Yeah.
to aim for the best.
Right. Strive for the best.
But then Osho goes and tells this story about the historian Gibbon,
Okay.
who literally starts crying after he finishes his masterpiece.
Wow.
Like, you'd think there'd be this huge sense of accomplishment, relief,
But of course.
but instead there's almost this sense of loss.
Huh. It's kind of like that feeling you get when you finally reach the top of the mountain you've been climbing for days.
Yes, exactly.
There's that exhilaration for sure, but also this feeling of now what?
Totally. I had that with this big design project I did a while back.
Yeah.
Spent months on it. And when I finally hit send on the final deliverable, I was surprised by how empty I felt.
Yeah.
Like I was expecting this huge wave of relief, but instead it was just sort of like, oh, okay, it's done.
Osho would probably say that's because we often mistake the destination for the journey itself.
Oh, that's good.
We put so much emphasis on the end goal,
Mhm.
the perfect creation, the flawless performance,
Right.
that we forget to actually savor the process itself.
So it's not about becoming complacent or anything,
No, not at all.
but more about shifting our focus
Exactly.
from achieving some perfect end state to embracing the continual evolution, the constant learning and growing.
You got it. It's like that feeling of being totally absorbed in a project where you lose all track of time.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
just completely present in that moment of creation.
Yeah,
There's a certain joy, a flow state that comes from that.
absolutely.
And that's what Osho's encouraging us to tap into.
Okay, so if we can kind of wrap our heads around this idea that maybe perfection isn't really the be-all and end-all,
Right.
where do we go from there?
Well, this is where Osho really takes things in a fascinating direction.
Okay.
He suggests that not only is perfection not the goal, but that there's actually something profoundly beautiful and essential about imperfection itself.
Hold on, I need a minute to process that.
Hmm.
So we're not just supposed to accept imperfection.
Yep.
We're supposed to actually embrace it.
Precisely.
Okay, now you're really making me think.
Good.
So how do we even begin to understand that?
Well, for that, we need to take a closer look at how Osho redefines the very nature of creation itself.
All right, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me. Okay, so we're embracing imperfection. I think I'm starting to get that. But how do we actually, put that into practice?
Well, one way to look at it is through Osho's idea of an imperfect God.
Right, because that's definitely not something you hear every day.
It kind of makes you rethink that whole traditional view of a perfect, all-knowing deity, right?
It does. So is he saying that because creation itself is imperfect, always evolving,
Yeah, exactly.
then we kind of have to be open to that same idea for ourselves?
It's like we're all part of this big, ongoing experiment, and those imperfections, those mistakes we make along the way, they're not failures.
They're just part of the process.
Exactly. And you know what? Osho even connects this idea to reincarnation.
Really? Hold on, reincarnation. How does that fit in?
So he believed that we keep coming back to this earthly plane, not to reach some ultimate state of perfection,
Okay.
but to fully immerse ourselves in this, this messy, unpredictable, imperfect experience we call life.
So each lifetime is kind of like another shot at learning and growing,
And racking up some more imperfections along the way.
but hopefully learning from them too.
Right. It's like the story he tells about Rabindranath Tagore.
Oh yeah, I love Tagore.
What about him? So Tagore, he had this incredible artistic career, right? You could say he achieved a level of mastery that many would consider perfect.
Definitely.
But when he was on his deathbed, guess what he did?
What?
He prayed to be reborn.
Wow. Why? After all he'd accomplished?
Because he felt like there was still so much more to experience, more to create, more to learn. It's like he wasn't afraid of coming back and making more mistakes.
That's actually a really interesting way to look at it. It's like if we were to achieve some kind of fixed, perfect state, wouldn't life be kind of, I don't know, boring?
That's a great point. And it gets to the heart of Osho's philosophy that life is meant to be dynamic, always changing, always in flux. To resist that is to resist the very nature of existence itself.
So then how do we actually apply this idea of embracing imperfection to our own lives? Like, how do we move past that fear of making a mistake and start to see those flaws as valuable?
Well, that's where Osho's perspective on exploring different dimensions of ourselves comes in. And it's where things get really interesting.
Okay, you've got my attention. Tell me more. Okay, exploring different dimensions of ourselves, I'm all in. But how's that tying into all this imperfection stuff?
Well, Osho, he thought, boxing ourselves in, like saying, I'm only a lawyer or I'm just an artist, that's what really holds us back.
From really being our full self.
Yeah, exactly. Like, imagine if we could only see one color.
Right. Or only listen to one song.
We'd miss out on so much richness. So Osho, he uses this example of crossbreeding to make his point.
Crossbreeding, like with plants and stuff?
Exactly. You mix things up and you get something even stronger, more resilient.
So it's like that with us, too.
Totally. Like, try a new hobby. Talk to someone you wouldn't normally, Ruby, even if it feels weird at first.
Embrace the weirdness.
Right? He even talks about these interplanetary marriages.
Hold on, interplanetary, like marrying an alien?
Well, it's more of a metaphor. But yeah, the idea is mixing things up. Really mixing things up leads to amazing growth.
So it's not about being the perfect anything.
Yeah.
It's more about being this full human being.
Exactly. With all the messy, imperfect, beautiful bits.
Which I guess leads us back to the whole point Osho's making.
That true fulfillment, it's not some finish line we cross.
It's more about just enjoying the ride.
And maybe picking up some interesting scars along the way.
So what imperfect thing are you going to try today? What conversation are you going to start?
Who knows?
Yeah.
That's the fun part. We get to decide.